67a, and we're the third line, Rabbi Zeir Amar. We're talking about how you affect a kinyan, and does changing the name of something and does that by itself institute a kinyan, an acquisition. So just after Rabbi Zeir Amar, actually, the fourth line. Fifth line. So the Gemara had talked about a name change that is permanent. So does that really make a kinyan? Hare tzinar. What about the case of a pipe? Okay. Demeikara kitzisa. First, it's called a block of wood or whatever. Bash tzinar, and you hollow it out. Now it's a pipe. Vitanya, but we have a brisa. Tzinar shachach of kavalo. If you have a pipe that you first carve it out, and then you put it in the ground. The water that goes through there it's like it's going through a kli, and then it's not good for a mikvah. The water is not good for a mikvah because mikvah water has to be naturally gathered, not through a kli or through So kabbalah v'sav hachako, but if you first put it in the ground and then you hollow it out, and plus also mikvah, then it's okay. It doesn't become a klivi. But either way, the name changed. First it was a block, and now it's a pipe. So changing the name is enough to affect a kinyan. Afilu kabbalah v'sav hachako, not really possible. What's the difference? Which one comes first? So the Master Shani Shiva Rabbanan. Okay, we were talking about whether the pipe, whether the water becomes, if it remains kosher for a mikvah, is considered drawn water and is not kosher for a mikvah, that's a drabanan, so we can be more lenient. So feel duration. Okay, so if that's the case, then like what's the difference? Like you should be mekil, you should be lenient in both cases. There, at least, like it was already a kli when it was still not attached. Okay, so it's a little hard to parse here, but the idea of the disqualification of this pipe had already taken place. It was already called a kli before it got into the ground. Whereas in the other case, it was put in the ground. It exists in the ground, and hollowing it out, making it a kli. So we could say it never became a kli. Okay. Meisvei. They asked the following question. You have three types of thieves here. One who steals in an open way, or in a concealed way, or someone who forces a transaction, right? If I say, you're going to sell that to me for under market price, and I force you to do that. So hekdesh and hekdesh, if they take that item and they make it hekdesh, and it works. Trumas and truma, if they take truma from it, it works. Maser also maser, if you take maser from it, it works. Okay, so it's clear, or it appears to be clear, that the thief acquires ownership. How did he acquire ownership? So we're going to assume that through yush, right? What we were talking about yesterday is that yush is something that affects ownership. What other way could there be? Amrei, so the answer, Hasami Kashina Hashem. In that brisa, there's also a name change. So it's not just yush, it's also a name change. What's the name change? Because this produce that you took truma from used to be called tavel, which is the term for produce that has not had truma taken from it. Truma, now it's called truma, or the part that you took from it is now called truma. So hekdesh, meikar chulin, hekdesh, and hekdesh is the same thing. First it was called chulin, now it's called hekdesh. So the shinu Hashem may be added on to the yush, but the shinu Hashem is what affects the name change and the acquisition, and not just the yush. How do I know that name change, or that any change makes a kinyan? The Torah says you return the gzela. The full pasuk is ve'yeshivas hagzela asher gazal. You return the stolen thing which was stolen. So that's an extra phrase. Im ke'ein shegazal yachzir v'im lav dami b'yalma b'yishlei. But it tells you is that if the thing remains as it was when you stole it, then you return it. If not, you pay you pay the monetary value if you've changed it. So Ayashar goes on, Aviv. But Gemara says we're already using that extra phrase to tell you that if your father stole something and now you've inherited it, you still have Sheno Mosif Chomesh Al Gezel Aviv, that you still have to return it, but you're not subject to the 20% penalty. Only the actual thief is, and not the estate. So that is what we learned from Asher Gazel. So how can you use it to also tell you about Shinoi? Okay, could have included one thing by saying return your theft, right? By extending that phrase to the theft which you stole. That Asher Gazel why you have that extra phrase, showing the parts, so you can learn both of these things. Some read it as follows, how do you know that changing the thing is not kona? So in this version, we're saying, okay, because you return the thing you stole, doesn't matter if it's changed or not. But then Baksiva Asher Gazel, where it says, well, in that case, but if that's what you want, doesn't have that extra phrase. So that can teach you that about your returning what your father stole, that you don't have to pay the 20%. Okay. Ula said, I'm going to prove to you that yush, that giving up on something is not a kinyan. Shenamar. Favesim goes all the esapisech v'es hachola. The pasuk in Malachi indicates an equivalence between gazul, piseach, and chol. Something stolen, lame, or sick. In other words, Navi is criticizing people for bringing these as sacrifices. Gazul doing a piseach. So we're going to say the stolen thing, we're going to apply the same definition, the same rule as lame. Obviously, you have to like to counter cloud. Because the lame, you can't fix it, right? Once it's lame, it's no good for a carbon anymore. So something stolen, once it's been stolen, it's disqualified from being a carbon. You never acquire it for yourself. It doesn't matter to yush or not yush. So that indicates that yush doesn't, by saying that something stolen is always something stolen, indicates that yush doesn't change its ownership status. Rav Amar mehacha, Rav says a different source, carbano. Imola carbano. If a person brings his carbon, it has to be yours and not something stolen. So if we're talking about before yush, so obviously, it's not yours to give, or to give as a carbon. You can't. It's obvious that it's not yours to give as a carbon. Pshita only carbon in the pasuk for must be. It's telling you about after the owner has given up, you, the thief, can still not use this as a carbon. And it tells you that yush does not affect a kinyan. But Rava, isn't Rava the one who said that the Bryce is talking about where you stole something that was already a carbon? So it doesn't need to be. It's not like you can give a carbon of your own by using somebody else's animal, the animal that you stole. No, it was already a carbon when you stole it, right? So then it doesn't tell you anything about yush. It's telling you that it's, even though its carbon status preceded the theft, it still can't be brought. So Boran says he buys same either Rava changed his mind, he didn't, he understood that the Bryce is not talking about that case. It's actually proving that yush is not kona. By same, or you could say Chamina or Papa, that one of these contradictory statements was actually not said by Rava, but by Rav Papa, his student. Yeah. Okay, back to the Mishnah. Midas Tashlumi Arba Chamisha. So the Mishnah said, the Torah has a special rule that if you steal an ox or a sheep and you sell it or slaughter it, you pay 4 or 5 times the value as restitution. So the Mishnah said that only applies to shor v'seh, an ox or a sheep. V'yamai, why? Nela shor mishavos. You could derive this from Shabbos, as we've done in other cases in here in Bava Kamma. And just as on Shabbos, your animal, your shore, it says your shore should rest, but we derive from that any animal that belongs to you should rest. We just say the same thing here. And here we should say it's not specific, just because the Torah gives you the case of when you steal and slaughter or sell an ox or a sheep, it really is a model for all other animals as well. The same rule. Rava says, no, Amar Cross, shor v'sesh neipamim, because it says ki gnovi shor. First mentions in the preamble when a person steals an ox or a sheep, and then in the restitution part it says chamisha bakar yishalim tachas hashor v'arbaton tachas haseh. It again specifies four times payment for the ox, 5 times payment for the sheep. So it's saying shor and set twice. Mar takes this as insisting that the Torah is insisting that this rule applies only to shor and set. Shor v'seim only applies to shor and set, not other kinds of animals. Amr said, "Hey, miyater." Okay, which one of these two statements or these two listings of shor and set do you consider to be the extra one? Elam Shar said the Seifa Miater, if you're talking about this, the latter mention, Tanichta Rachmana Ki Igna of Shar said Utvacho Macharo Chamisha Wakar Sham Tachto Yarba Son Tachto. So how are you going to leave out shor and set from the latter thing, right? You're going to say you should, because you have to be able to specify 4 times for the shor, 5 times payment for the set. But if you just say 4 times for it and 5 times for it, how would you interpret that? Because if we had written that, maybe it's cumulative, right? If you're not specifying 4 times for the ox and 5 times for the sheep, you're saying you have to pay 4 and 5 times, it means 9 times, right? By just pay 9 times. But doesn't it say 4 times for it and 5 times for it, right? Then you could then one of the words tachtav, we would think it's extra, and but we need that extra tachtav the Tanya. What we need it for? Yachol ganav shor sorry, yachol ganav shor shavim on it. Yishalim tachtav nikidin. Maybe you could pay back. You steal a nice fat healthy ox, maybe you could pay back with some 4 kind of skinny, less valuable oxen. Talmud Lomar, tachtov. That's why the Torah insists tachtov means you can't just replace it with another ox. It has to be a similar value ox. So we already use that extra tachtov. So then you would still think you have to pay 9 times, and obviously that's not the case. So that's why you have to have shor and set written at the end of the passage. And shor v'set duration uses. So maybe when the Torah introduces the case, it shouldn't say ki gnovi shor of seh. Tenichta rachmana ki gnovi shutvacho macharo. The Torah could just say if somebody steals and slaughters or sells it, okay, that seems reasonable. So where it says he cuts rachmana haki, if that's what the Torah would write. I would think that you have to steal both a shor and a set, right? So but the Gemara says that's not a good objection because it's written in the singular, right? You slaughter it or sell it. So maybe it means you have to, in order to be subject to the penalty, you have to both steal and sell. You have to sell both of them. Like maybe you're only liable for this 4 and 5 times penalty if you're involved in an incident, if you steal both a sheep and an ox. So when it says umacharo ksiv l'chad, it's written singularly. So maybe I would think that you would need to steal a shore and a set, slaughter one and sell the other. Maybe that's when you're subject to the extra penalty. So the says, "Oh, macharo." So it says or, right? So or means or either one case or the other case. Maybe you'd only be liable for the extra penalty if you steal both a shor and a set, and you slaughter one of them and leave the other one, or you sell one and do not and leave the other one. Maybe that's the only time. Ella, sure, the safe of this. So no matter how you slice it, you couldn't leave out the first designation, ki novi sharoset. So the idea that you can derive something from the fact that that the Torah specifies sharoset twice, and that's how we know it only applies to sharoset, not other animals, that falls apart. And what shar sefer v'seteresha miyater. So the Gemara says, it's extra. Shor at the end and set at the beginning. You could have written as follows: if a person steals an ox and slaughters it or sells it, then you have to pay 5 times. And you could, and in the same case, it would be 4 times for stealing and selling a sheep. Stealing or slaughtering. So shor the safe of the said racial anomaly. So why does that say shor oseh in each the beginning and the end? That's how you know that's how the Torah could have said it without repeating shor v'seh. So that's how you know that it's specific only to shor v'seh. Okay. Now, the Mishnah had said the following. I wonder if we should stop here, actually. No, we can go on a little bit. Let's get on to the next one. The Mishnah said that if you steal from a thief, right, then you don't pay kefil. You don't pay the double, the penalty pay. That only applies before the owner gives up on it. So it still belongs to the original owner. Reuven stole it from the owner, and then Shimon stole it from Reuven. So Shimon is not liable for the extra penalty. Is the second theft took place after the owner gave up on it, and so Kano gonna brisho. So now Reuven owns, acquires ownership of it. So when Shimon steals it from Reuven, he's stealing Reuven's property, and he has to pay kefil. Amar Rav Sheshes says, Amina Kinaim Shachiv Rav Amar Lahashmata. Rav must have been falling asleep when he said this. It's a ridiculous ruling. To Tanya, because we have another brisa. Amar Rav Akiva, why does the Torah say you pay 4 or 5 times for selling or slaughtering your stolen goods? Because you've become like the sin has become permanent, right? Like once you've sold it to somebody else, you can't get it back to return it. Or once you've slaughtered it, you can't return the live animal. Amos. When must this apply? If it's before yush, then then does the thief selling it before the owner gave up mean that the acquisition has taken effect? No. You could still return it. It can still get returned. It's still the property of the owner, even if you have sold it. So it must be after Yush. So if you think that Yush acquires things, why do you have to pay 4 or 5 times? Right? You've acquired the animal. You're selling it. You're selling your own animal. Sure, you acquired it in an improper way, but it's still your own. So it should be returned to the kefil thing. So they say, you're being penalized extra because you have, not because is irrevocable, but because you have become too accustomed, you become rooted in sin. Same, we're going to say the same thing here. Okay. And now here, I think we will stop for today and pick it up tomorrow. Have a good day, everybody.